Hello, lovely viewers. You are once again welcome to Steady Right Up. I am so excited to be back with you to continue with our discussion on one of our favorite economic model, the demand and supply model. In our discussion today, we're going to look at what a household is, firm, returns, consumer surplus, producer surplus, and anything related to the concept of demand and supply. We can't talk about demand and supply without considering household. This is a very vital concept in demand and supply. Who or what is a household? Household includes the people who attempt to maximize utility. In my previous video, I defined utility to be the satisfaction one derives from consuming a good or a service. So with household, they are always ready to maximize their satisfaction. Who do you think maximizes satisfaction? Is it the producer or the consumer? Definitely is the consumer. Household also face budget constraints because we have unlimited wants and our resources are also limited. Resources can be in the form of our budget. So the money we have on us are also limited. So we are always facing budget constraints. We can't spend beyond a certain level. Therefore, consumers are always facing budget constraints. They also face diminishing marginal return, which means that as they consume more or additional units of any product or service, the utility or the satisfaction they gain reduces. All these three factors describe a household to be a consumer in all. Firms, on the other hand, include those who attempt to maximize profits. So firms are always determined to maximize their profits. They face cost constraints. They are always having a limit to their cost. So they always make sure that their cost of production does not go beyond a certain point. Firms are also subject to the law of diminishing marginal returns, which I will definitely speak about in this presentation. Unlike households who are always maximizing their utility, firms are always aiming at maximizing their profits. Which producer at all wants to produce and lose? No, they are always aiming at making profits, and they always make sure that their costs are limited. They don't spend beyond a certain point. Now, what is market? We have a producer, we have firms, we have households, consumers. What happens next? Where do they interact? Market. So a market is a collection of buyers and sellers who interact to result in a possible exchange. When we hear of a market, what actually shouldn't come in mind is the typical market we all know. No, but a market actually means a collection of buyers and sellers. So when buyers and sellers come together, irrespective of where they meet, just to interact to result in an exchange, it's a market. Now pay attention to this marketplace. Marketplace is the typical market we all speak about, and it is the geographical locations where exchanges and the results of demand and supply occur. So the physical market that we all know is called a marketplace. Market mechanisms are referred to as the information network within and across the market. So in every market, there's some form of information network. In our world now, we have online marketing, we have physical marketing, and all that. And there is definitely going to be a circulation of information. And how do this information circulate? There is a network within that market that spreads information. And one of these mechanisms can be advertisements. Through advertisements, producers communicate with their consumers on how a product is, the usefulness and the worth of that product, and that is what we term as market mechanism. This mechanism helps all individuals to keep in touch with each other about prices and the availability of goods and services. The main focus of demand and supply is to identify the relationship between consumers and producers. So we'll keep talking about consumers and producers across our discussion. Let's now discuss what producer surplus is. Producer surplus is a measure of producer welfare. It basically talks about the welfare of producers, and it is defined as the difference between the amount a producer is willing to supply goods and services for and the actual amount received after a trade. Yes, so let's say maybe a producer is willing to supply goods and services at 2 cedis, but when the producer sends this product to the market, the price has been increased to 3 cedis. So the difference between 3 cedis and 2 cedis, which is 1 cedi, is now the surplus the producer will get, or the welfare of the producer. And that is what a producer surplus actually measures. When we get to the supply curve, we definitely determine where a producer surplus is on a curve. Definitely there will be a consumer surplus if there is a producer surplus. So a consumer surplus actually also measures the welfare of consumers, and it is the difference between what a consumer is willing to pay and what is actually paid for consuming goods and services. So just like a producer producing at 2 cedis and goes to the market and meets an increase in price, a consumer may also go to markets expecting a product to be sold at 3 cedis, but now he or she meets the price of that product to be 2 cedis. So the difference between 2 cedis and 3 cedis, which is 1 cedi, becomes the consumer's welfare or the consumer's surplus. Just as consumers always expect to have utility, to have some form of satisfaction, producers also expect returns. Returns are the profit producers derive from an investment in factors of production. So as producers invest in their factors of production, which I have spoken in my previous videos that you can find at the end screen of this video, they expect to gain some form of returns, which are in the form of profits. So as consumers expect utility, producers definitely also expect returns, which are in the form of profit. Marginal returns are the profit producers derive from a unit increase in a factor of production. So as they are increasing investment in the factors of production, they also expect to gain that additional increase in investment. So in any unit increase in a factor of production, producers expect to get some form of profit from these investments. There's also the law of diminishing marginal returns, as consumers also have diminishing marginal utilities. Producers also have diminishing marginal returns, and this law says that at a particular point in production, an additional increase in a factor of production yields a relatively smaller increase in output or profit. So as you increase the investment in a factor of production, say labor, you keep increasing labor in production, it will get to a point in time that an additional increase in a labor wouldn't even affect the output. It may even decrease output because some of them will feel adamant or they will feel relaxed in producing. Therefore, that additional increase in labor will not yield anything. Even if it will yield something, it will be smaller than the previous labor you had. That is the law of diminishing marginal returns. Equilibrium. As consumers and producers interact at marketplace or at a market, there should be some form of agreement. So equilibrium is simply a state of balance. I always say it is a state of balance between opposing forces. These opposing forces in our discussion are consumers and producers, so that there is no tendency to change. So there should be some form of agreement, some form of balance in the market where consumers and producers agree at a point in time. And this equilibrium is in the form of equilibrium in price and equilibrium in quantity. Equilibrium price is the price where the demand price and the supply price is the same. For equilibrium price, the price at what consumers are willing to pay and the price at what producers are willing to produce is the equilibrium price. And the equilibrium quantity is where the quantity demanded is the same as the quantity supplied. So the quantity that consumers are demanding is the same as the quantities that producers are also producing into the market. This brings about equilibrium. This brings about balance in the market when there is agreement between prices and quantity. We'll keep meeting equilibrium price, equilibrium quantity in our treatment of demand and supply. So let's keep these definitions in our mind for now and learn how to use these in our consideration of demand and supply. In our next discussion, let's consider our first concept, which is the demand model. We look at what demand is, the law of demand, and some other factors in demand. And I believe that we will all enjoy studying demand and supply. Thank you very much for spending your precious time with us on our channel. Kindly subscribe to keep yourself updated. Share our videos to those you think they'll find this video very helpful. And also like, comment, join in our focus group discussion. You can find our WhatsApp link at the comment section.